just a second. Hello again. Welcome to Harley Carnes. Interesting way to say it. Maybe I'll do it that way. Welcome to the Harley Carnes podcast. Harley on the headlines. Wondering about the difference in how that sounds? Yeah, well, I kind of am too. Nothing much to it, though. We're just incorporating the two ideas into one heading. The Harley Carnes podcast, and which is kind of the longer version of the podcast idea. Harley on the headlines has been the shorter version, happens Monday through Friday, and that sort of thing. Problem is that people can't find them as easily, And so you've heard that theme when we do Harley on the headlines. I mean, I could do it like this. I could have the Harley Carnes podcast come up, which would be fine too. But if I did that, then we'd go back to using something like, like this. I like that one a lot, Both of those are theme music that was written and produced, beast on a guitar, by the name of Jonathan M. Horner. He calls himself Beat Mechanic, and the music is on the Free Music Archive, which is where I found it. Didn't cost me any money. Make a little contribution from time to time. But, I don't know, it's pretty cool music, right? Anyway, the idea for people a lot smarter than me is that we'll put everything under one heading. Ought to make it easier for people to find. I guess the only question is, which theme do we stay with? And to that end, have you told anyone about the show lately? I hope you have. I hope you do, because that is how it grows. I may be the farmer planting some seeds, but you guys are the sunshine and the rain that make it grow. I want to thank you for being part of the process, because it's real when I say, I can't do it without you. Don't know where all of this is going, but the Trump administration is real serious about stopping bad people and poisons from getting into the country. For decades, we have lived in this country knowing that though we were spending billions of dollars every year on the war on drugs, we were stopping 15 to 20% of the flow into the country. Now a militarized zone exists along the southern border in California. In other words, there are military people there in addition to ICE and the Border Patrol. This one puts Navy personnel on land. They do that, by the way. From Arizona to Tecate, California. That's a town in the San Diego, Tijuana metro area. Much of the southern border is now militarized. It gives the border guard dogs more teeth, if you will. You've probably heard by now that the Navy backed up the Coast Guard as it commandeered a Venezuelan oil tanker loaded with 2 million barrels of oil. Well, we have an idea why. Half of that oil belonged to an oil importer run by Cuba, the Cuban government. In fact, the tanker itself is called the Skipper, previously named the MT Adisa, which the Biden administration had identified as being part of a whole network of shadow tankers that smuggled crude oil for Iran and for Hezbollah. And get this, the network was being run by a Ukrainian oil trading company based in Switzerland. Why Switzerland? Well, that's obvious. For the same reason you put your money secretly in Swiss banks. It's hard to get information out of that country. So it is not a case of President Trump just flexing his mighty military muscles. He's following up on information generated by the Biden administration, and instead of just letting it sit, doing something substantive with it. Venezuela and Cuba can say goodbye to the oil in that ship, by the way. As Trump said, I guess we'll keep it. Some Democrats are claiming the Trump tariffs have cost the average American household $1,200. That does not actually compute. Though, if they say it or get the media to report it often enough, you might actually believe it. In fact, what has happened is that in large part prices that had spiked and were still headed upward were already high at the end of the Biden mess have not come back down. Now, gas and oil prices are down a lot. Food prices are not rising, but they're not coming down very quickly. That tends to be the way it works with consumer goods. Once a seller starts selling something for more money, the price tends to stay thereabouts, even as wholesale prices start coming down. It turns into more profits for the seller. Now, if the wholesale prices stay down, then competition will bring the overall prices down. The U.S. trade deficit has fallen 24%. That's the August number. That is really good. I mean, obviously, the trade deficit has fallen 24%. But it is, in fact, both good and bad. Good because it should mean more opportunities for American farmers and other commodity producers of all sorts. Not so good in the short term because what we make costs more than what we can get cheaper elsewhere. It means less of the cheaper priced food from China and Mexico and such, which is what Democrats are being so quick to underline and try to turn to an advantage. No one said starting to get America's economic house in order was going to be pain-free or cheap in the short run. In fact, Trump said it's going to cost a little bit. Stay with it. The question is, do we have the stomach for it? Or are we still willing to sell out our future for a few pennies saved today? You know, penny wise, pound foolish. There is a bright spot for the economy. After months and months of waiting for a speck of help from the Federal Reserve, finally, the Fed has ordered an interest rate cut. Chairman Jerome Powell predicts a stronger economy next year. Because that's how it works. You make money less expensive, people can get their hands on more of it and do more with it. Not complicated, really. Cutting the federal funds rate, which is to say the money that banks pay the Fed for chunks of the money supply, should make borrowing for a home or a car less expensive. It will. Make it less expensive for businesses to borrow money for expansion or whatever they need the money to do. It should bring your credit card costs down, but when's the last time your credit card became less expensive? Come on. Those companies are really slow to lower the income stream. I mean, why would they? They got you already. Trump has been pushing for another cut in interest rates for a long time. Claims it was lefty politics that held it up. I don't know. Maybe so, maybe not. What's in a font? A font, you know, the style of typeface or whatever is written down for you to read. Turns out a little more than you'd expect. The Biden administration had decided that part of its diversity, equity, and inclusion campaign would require changing the font used in much of the government's diplomatic correspondence and printing chores. From the traditional Times New Roman, which is the familiar print you have seen in the New York Times, for example, forever, to Calibri. Heck, typewriters, remember those? They used to come from the factory with Times New Roman keys. So why change to something that's marginally simpler looking? Why do that? Well, there's no good reason. Calibri might use infinitesimally less ink, but mostly it was just change for change's sake. Anthony Blinken ordered it done, claimed it would make things easier for people with disabilities. What? I mean, come on. It didn't make a speck of difference for anyone. Apparently just another way to poke a leaky hole in the apple cart of tradition in America. Kind of nutso, really. Well, now it's being reversed. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says there is value in tradition and consistency and the image of the nation among the world's diplomatic offices. So why does this matter at all? One bean in a hill of beans. Well, if you could use just any old font available in your government docs and communications, you, if you work there, could just as well choose Tahoma or Show Card Gothic or Bookman Old Style, one of my favorites, or Lucida. So many to choose from. It could get weird, right? It really could, depending on what people chose to use. So they've always homogenized it. Always. Anyway, they're going back to Times New Roman. Besides, Calibri clashed with the government's own very traditional letterhead. Did you know that Spotify said it would have to review what we're doing here because I used a Yiddish word? Oy vey. What's that all about? I mean, shoot. I am also likely to toss in a Russian word or a Mexican word or something in Vietnamese or French too, just because they fit the moment, part of communicating ideas and thoughts, I once asked the great Barry Farber, who spoke something like 28 languages, what his favorite phrase or insult was in Yiddish. He quickly said, "Geh kacken auf den Yam." I said, "What's that mean?" He said, "Go crap in the ocean." So I laughed. You laugh. It's funny. And it's innocent these days. Yiddish is great. It's colorful, says things in often unique ways. Just ask any comedian, especially from New York or Europe. I mean, where are we these days? I love Spotify. My music playlists live there. Spotify has improved my life, but worrying about the use of Yiddish, that's just weird. Maybe they had to go look it up. I don't know. It's a strange world these days. That's for sure. And lastly, speaking of words and terms, there is 67. Another example of something entirely nonsensical becoming a viral sensation. It started in California, of course, when teenagers in crowds hear the number 67 or the numbers 6-7 together, they take it as a Pavlovian cue to start making noise, celebrating nothing boisterously. Sounds stupid and mindless, doesn't it? Well, because it is. It's what dictionary.com said has all the hallmarks of brain rot, the logical endpoint of being perpetually online, scrolling endlessly, consuming content fed by users or to users by algorithms trained by other algorithms. That is just what dictionary.com said. I can't argue with it. Makes sense. In fact, there are a lot of examples of experiments in the control of people, of the masses. Not so much in terms of control as limits on behavior. We got a lot of that during COVID, But control in terms of encouraging behavior. The more anarchic or undecorous the behavior, the better. It's become bad enough that In-N-Out Burgers took 67 out of the ticket order system, lest a restaurant worker have to announce that order number 67 was ready. All hell would break loose among the brain-rotted crowd of easily manipulated teenagers. It's no joke. 67 is no longer part of the ticket order system at In-N-Out Burgers. But it's cool, right? Nothing to worry about. They'll grow out of it. I don't know. Maybe they will. I guess that's enough for today's Harley on the Headlines, the mini podcast, so to speak. There it is. Thanks for being there. And please help pass the word. Send this episode or any other to someone you love and care about, or maybe someone you want to just irritate. Like, follow, subscribe, email it onward. Accept my gratitude for the help, please. I'm Harley Carnes, and we'll do this again real soon.